by the window. Let me take a look.
As we leave here, over to your right, I'm going to find a headstone that's on the corner here. It's rectangle in shape. It has a cross in the center. This is to David Chaffee James Jr., right here on the corner. The first African-American four-star general in the Air Force. He flew over 100 combat missions over Korea and over 70 over Vietnam. And then to the left, that's one of the two equestrian statues here. That's Sir John Dill. He was sent over here by Winston Churchill to help with our war effort during World War II. He died in 1944 in the Pentagon of a heart attack. And because of the blockade around England by the Germans, he was unable to be sent home. Despite petitioning Congress to have him buried here, and of course it was granted. So this is his final resting place. On our right, we're going to see, we approach three headstones on this hill. This is the Chaplain's Memorial. This is dedicated to those that fought during World War I, II, Korea, and Vietnam. And they gave grief and counseling to our service members. And they gave their own lives because a lot of them were on the front lines. So this is dedicated to all the chaplains. And over here to the left, these headstones here, this is the repatriation of World War II. They were killed overseas and their families requested that their bodies be brought back home, buried here so they could be closer to them. Now Arlington Cemetery, before it was a cemetery, was a plantation, about 1,100 acres owned by George Washington Parke Custis. He was the adopted grandson of George Washington. In fact, he built Arlington House in honor of George Washington. And he and his wife lived here and raised their family, and they are buried here on the estate. They had one child that lived to adulthood, Mary Anna Randolph Custis. She married Robert E. Lee. They lived in the Arlington House and raised their family. Now, in 1861, Virginia seceded from the Union. And Robert E. Lee was in the Union Army, and he said that he could not fight against his fellow Virginians. He came back here for one last time, made his decision, then he left for Richmond, Virginia, where eventually he became the head of the Confederate Army. About a month after he left, Mrs. Lee left, and when she did, the Union Army moved in, occupied the Arlington House, and took over the grounds. General Meigs was in charge of finding a place to bury the dead. He came over here and decided this would be the perfect place to bury them. And this is how the cemetery that we have today. Now, over to our right, where the amphitheater is, and this is where the two of the unknowns are from World War I, II in Korea. The unknowns from Vietnam was identified through DNA testing as First Lieutenant from the Air Force, Michael Blassie, and at the request of his family, his remains were removed, and he's buried in his home of St. Louis, Missouri. So that one will remain forever empty. Now you're going to see the change of the guard. This is the 3rd Battalion of the Old Guard. This is a voluntary assignment. It takes 6 months to a year for training before they can do the ceremony. And they usually have this position for about 1 to 2 years. Now you're going to see the relief commander come out and inspect the uniform and the weapon, and then you'll see the guard do the ceremony with 21 steps in front of the tomb. They'll turn, pause for 21 seconds, and then walk back. That is about for the 21 gun salute ceremony. So it's very impressive, and it's very moving. We go around the corner here, 5 headstones down and 5 in. It's the one that has some flowers on it right there. That is to Chuck Burlingame. He was the pilot of Flight 77 that was taken over by the hijackers and went into the Pentagon on 9/11. So that is to honor him and all the other innocent victims of that terrible day. Now approaching on our left, I'll show you when we get a little closer, is to Audie Murphy, one of the most decorated during World War II. He received over 28 medals, including the Medal of Honor. And after he finished his service to his country, he became a film star, and he resides in the great state of Texas. It's right here on the left, under that tree with the little American flag in front of it. Now also here you would have time to go over and see the USS Maine, and also the memorials to the Challenger and the Columbia. And
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I am Staff Sergeant Gilliam of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, United States Army. Guard of Honor, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The ceremony that you are about to witness is the changing of the guard. In keeping with the dignity of this ceremony, it is requested that everyone remain silent and standing. Thank you. Left shoulder. Out. Forward. March. Ready? Ice. Present. Out. Ready? Ice. Hands on your orders.
Post and order. Remain as directed.
Orders acknowledged.
Ready? Ice. Present. Out. Right shoulder. Out. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention for one more moment, please? As of 7 p.m., Arlington National Cemetery is closed to the public, and the tomb of the unknown soldier becomes a restricted military post. Therefore, all visitors must vacate the area immediately.
To your right hand side, you will soon see in the front-screen statue depicting General Philip Kearny. He lost his arm in the Mexican War, lost his life in the Civil War. He was so respected by the North and the South that when he died during the Civil War, both sides had to cease fire to allow the removal of his horse, his sword, and his remains. Approaching to the right, you'll be able to see the old Memorial Amphitheater. This is where the first Memorial Day ceremony was held, back then known as Decoration Day. It was celebrated every year on May 29th, and there's a reenactment ceremony that goes on every year here on May 29th. Off to your right, you'll be able to see the Mrs. Lee's famous flower garden. Right in the middle, you'll notice another Tomb of the Unknown, the Tomb of the Unknown Civil War. That encases over 2,111 service members remains to this very day. Off to your right, you'll see Arlington House. Right behind it, you'll notice two smaller houses. These were the former slave quarters for when this was an active plantation during the 1800s. These former slaves were released by the Emancipation Proclamation and allowed to become citizens of a small village within it. Also buried in Section 27 are some more of our USCT, United States Color Troops, and our first military burial here of Private William Chrisman in the year of 1864. Though that was not the first burial on the property, the first was of Mary Randolph Park Custis, one of the Custis and Lee's cousins, also a cousin to Thomas Jefferson, making George Washington, Robert E. Lee, and Thomas Jefferson all related through marriage. Off to your left, as far as the eye can see, go about the next minute. This is our Korean War and Vietnam War section of the cemetery. All of these service members fought bravely near the war and are laid to rest here. I ask if we can all please have a moment of silence. All of these service members know exactly how true the quote that can be found on the Korean War Memorial is. Freedom is not free, and through the dedication of their time, their services, and ultimately the sacrificing of their lives, they have held true to the liberties that we enjoy to this very day. Off towards your right-hand side, you'll be able to see a large 14-foot tall sandstone marker. This is the tallest one off in the distance. That was the final resting place for our 27th president, William Howard Taft. The only president to also be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And that's at the top of the stone pathway off towards the right. To the left of that same stone pathway in the second row, you'll see a headstone with a circle encasing 5 stars. That's the final resting place for General Omar Nelson Bradley, the last surviving 5-star general. As we pass through our gates approaching on towards your right, you will soon be able to see the Women in Military Corps American Services Memorial. The building itself is a memorial on the inside of wonderful rotating exhibits. Currently on display on the flag colors of World War II. Many of our servicemen were overseas fighting during World War II. Many women stepped up to assist in the training of the pilots and epidemics. And for that, we salute those very women. Now that we're back here at the Visitor Center, I would like to leave everyone with one final thought. Of all the headstones that you see today, you'll notice 2 very important dates. The day of the person's birth and the day of the person's passing. In between each, you'll see a space or a dash. That space or dash represents the person's entire life. At one point, all of us will have that same space or dash. But it's only up to us how we live our lives and try to make changes to the world around us. Never feel that you're too small to make any changes. Because all the service members here in Arlington National Cemetery, from private all the way up to 5-star general, are all honored the exact same way. They are all ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Again, I would like to thank you all for riding with Tour Mobile. My name is Rob. I hope you all enjoyed my narration, and everyone have a blessed day. Thank you.
We're actually at the
We could catch a cab right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf, directly ahead is, ladies and gentlemen, all clear. You are now free to move about the vessel. Be advised that we might be affected by another vessel's wake while underway, which can make walking a bit hazardous and might lead to an occasional spray of water across our bow. So please take necessary precautions as you move around. For your comfort, our concession stand is now open and will remain open until shortly before we arrive in Georgetown. We offer ice-cold beverages and fresh popcorn. There are numerous points of interest which I'll be discussing today, but since most passengers have purchased round-trip tickets, and since some sites are best viewed from the perspective of the return trip, my narration is designed to cover different sites on the lakes to Georgetown than on a return trip to Alexandria. Coming into view on our starboard side is a white building with a large parabolic antenna on the roof. This is part of the United States Naval Research Laboratory built in 1923 for the main purpose of building and designing radio waves. Some of them are held early in the development of high-frequency long-range communication. Studies radar, development of sonar systems. The American form of sonar was perfected here during World War II. The parabolic radar antenna is now fixed on the roof. It's the first such instrument used to measure the distance from the Earth to the Moon. For reported accuracy of 9 inches. Just beyond the antenna is a huge building that appears to have 4 large gold poles on it. Those gold pole laptops are actually illegal. Any satellite communication. Considered one of the safest airports in the country, roughly 16.5 million travelers pass through National annually. Construction of the cast iron dome was authorized by Congress in 1855 and was completed in January 1866 upon the removal of the scaffolding from below Constantino Venus Great Fresco, the Apotheosis of Washington. The Capitol dome was the work of Thomas Walter. It stands 287 feet high and weighs $8,900,000. In 1865, determined that the dome was expanded to drag performing the direction above the dome is suspended designed by Thomas Crawford and stands 19.5 feet tall and is the crowning feature of the Capitol building. Congress is possession of a light show on the top of the statue, and the building of one Lee lived in Arlington House until the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861. The establishment of Arlington National Cemetery dates to 1864. The property was confiscated by the federal government. Subsequent legal battles were finally settled in 1892, when the U.S. government paid the heirs of General Lee $150,000 for rights to the property. In 1933, the War Department restored the mansion and transferred it to the U.S. National Park Service. Arlington National Cemetery is the final resting place for a wide range of members of the U.S. Armed Forces. Original burials included soldiers who died in local hospitals during the Civil War. 2 presidents are buried here, William Taft and John F. Kennedy, as are Senator Robert F. Kennedy and Pierre L'Enfant, who designed the city of Washington, D.C. On our starboard side is the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. Efforts to erect a federal monument to Lincoln began 2 years after his death, when an act of Congress incorporated the Lincoln Monument Association. Although the association appealed for subscriptions and prepared plans for a monument, little was actually accomplished. Finally, in 1911, Congress passed legislation to construct the memorial, and the McMillan Commission chose an obscure location in West Potomac Park, which at the time was a desolate swamp. Architect Henry Bacon chose a Greek design reminiscent of the Parthenon, with 36 columns surrounding the walls of the memorial building, each representing a state in the Union at the time of Lincoln's death. Murals on the north and south walls are the work of Jules Durand. One shows the Angel of Truth freeing a slave. The other depicts the unity of North and South. The statue of Lincoln was sculpted by Daniel Chester French. It portrays a seated Lincoln as a war president. The statue measures 19 feet high and is of such a scale that if Lincoln were standing, he would be 28 feet tall. The statue is carved out of 28 blocks of Georgia white marble, and it rests on an oblong pedestal of Tennessee marble. Several hundred yards beyond the shoreline, on our starboard side, is a cluster of buildings that form the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. On the roof of one of these buildings is a small gold and white dome, which once housed the telescopes of the U.S. Naval Observatory. From 1844 to 1893, this National Historic Landmark was the workplace of Navy scientists and mathematicians who made the institution one of the finest astronomical laboratories in the world. President John Quincy Adams, an amateur astronomer, termed the observatory the lighthouse of the sky. President Abraham Lincoln is known to have studied the evening sky through the observatory's telescopes during his presidency. In 1877, Professor Asaph Hall discovered the 2 satellites of Mars while using the observatory's refraction telescope, the largest such instrument in the world at the time. In 1893, the U.S. Naval Observatory was relocated to a higher elevation, north of Georgetown on Massachusetts Avenue, just a few blocks from the National Cathedral, where it remains today. In 1974, this new site of the observatory became the official residence of the Vice President of the United States. The massive white structure that we are approaching on our starboard side is the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. In 1958, President Dwight Eisenhower signed legislation which provided authorization for the establishment of a national cultural center in this city that belongs to the entire country. President Kennedy encouraged the project and organized preliminary fundraising efforts. President Johnson added his support in 1964 and signed a law designating the center as the official federal memorial to President Kennedy. Architect Edward Durrell Stone incorporated 5 levels in his design of the center. The main level houses 3 theaters, the concert hall being the largest of the 3, with a seating capacity of 2,750. 3 lower levels are used for parking, and the roof terrace includes 3 restaurants. On the nearest end of the building, beyond the glass doors, is the grand foyer, which serves as a central lobby for the theaters. The grand foyer runs the full length of the building, 630 feet. Inside the foyer is a bronze bust of President Kennedy, sculpted by Robert Burks. The readily apparent ongoing construction in the area is part of the Kennedy Center Plaza project, which will significantly enhance access to the center and provide much-needed educational and rehearsal facilities. On our starboard side, just beyond the Kennedy Center, is a series of horseshoe-shaped buildings comprising apartments, offices, and hotel facilities known as the Watergate Complex. On the 6th floor of the farthest building is where the Democratic National Headquarters were located in 1972. Watergate gained world renown following the break-in of these headquarters by members of late President Richard M. Nixon's Committee to Re-elect the President, leading ultimately to Mr. Nixon's political downfall and the imprisonment of several of his key staff members. Ahead and to starboard is the rowing facility known as Thompson's Boat Center. Between Thompson's and the Watergate Complex is the mouth of Rock Creek, a small stream which begins in Upper Montgomery County, Maryland, and winds its way through 1,700 acres of Washington, D.C. parkland named for it. Several hundred yards beyond the mouth of Rock Creek is the eastern terminus of the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal. The C&O Canal ranges through 185 miles of Maryland countryside, more or less paralleling the Potomac River, until reaching its western terminus in Cumberland, Maryland. The canal had 74 locks and a 12-foot wide tow path, which was used by mule-pulled barges to move coal, grain, minerals, timber, and other commodities between Georgetown and Cumberland prior to the Civil War. A replica of a mule-pulled barge departs on daily tours from the C&O Visitor Center, which is just a few minutes' walk from our dock. Directly ahead is the dock at Georgetown. Georgetown is the oldest section of what is now the nation's capital. Founded in 1751 as a town within the Maryland colony, Georgetown flourished as town and its surrounding area. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be docking in Georgetown in just a few minutes. For your safety, please ensure that your hands and arms remain inside the vessel until we are completely tied to the pier and the captain announces that it's safe to disembark. We will be at the pier for only a few minutes to unload and load passengers, so only those passengers whose final destination is Georgetown or who plan to return on a later boat are permitted to disembark. If you plan to return to Old Town Alexandria on a later boat, be sure to ask the captain about the return trip schedule and get a reboarding pass. On behalf of the Potomac Riverboat Company, I'd like to thank you for riding with us today. For those who will be leaving us here, I hope you enjoyed the tour and enjoy the remainder of your stay in Georgetown.
Doing his work today.
Be fun to come early in the day and then spend the rest of the day here and then go back.
Oops. We're home. Something on the screen. What does it say? Dirty video head. Oh, darn it. Well, you'll just have to suffer. All right, you getting that dirty video head?
Yung plantation, nasa likod. Halika sa tabi.
¿Dónde la iban a encontrar allí?
Sinipin mo sa ano.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're all right.
Auntie, you're all wet.
I know. It felt good.
Someone's in the yard. Oh, look. 街对面去看是吧？不能到街对面。真的，好嘞。
你手机啊？上次不是有一个家伙他妈的，那地上面想翻过去，上来就逮，逮了就按住。稍微叫早一点。来照相，照完相我们就去下个地方。这是东非，这是白宫。
And very touristy. Walking around with
You guys try to get together right there.
Let me scoot out of the way. They wouldn't let me leave my bike because I had a backpack on it and everything. I forgot about that stuff.
What no? Not theirs. Yeah, with me. We got your 4 out of 5. It's big. It's a wonderful bag. It's a phone book. It's got another one and a dress. Right next to it. Wait, he's right there next to it.
Maybe we can find out over here.
I'm recording.
Yes, very beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay,
I'm
it's
starting
gonna
to
rain.
rain.